You will recall that I passed through Shaugh Station before going through the tunnel onto Clearbrook. I want to backtrack a little and visit Shaugh Bridge, where there are features of the historical landscape that cannot be ignored. I drove down the 3/4 mile to Shaugh Bridge. Today, there is a visitor car park set beneath these large structures, which we will examine shortly. Looking over the bridge itself, we find the two rivers, the Plym to the right and the Meavy to the left, meeting before they pass under the bridge and continue on as the River Plym. Returning to the car park, the structures are the remains of a china clay kiln. This part is called the linhay, or as it should be pronounced, linny, where trucks would collect the cake-dry slabs of china clay to be driven off to Shaugh Station for export. In fact, this roof structure would have been quite immense, as can be seen by this old picture. The loading bays are still present and were last used in 1960, relatively recent in our history. The whole platform is now overgrown with vegetation. Climbing up, we can see the kiln area where the china clay was rapidly tried. A fire lit at the far end had a flue under the tank, and that would dry the china clay to a cake. As I walked up the path, it became quickly apparent that china clay had settled on it at one stage. Several settling tanks can be seen, now heavily overgrown since the 1960s. Here's just one steep-sided tank that would have allowed the feldspar, the constituent part of the process, to precipitate down to the bottom of the tank. If you put talc, which is china clay, into a glass of water, it will be suspended to make a very milky liquid. Slowly, it will sink over the course of time. And this is really what happens in the settling tanks. Other constituent parts, quartz and mica, being heavier, will have precipitated out in earlier settlement processes. In the last process, the feldspar settles and the top layer of clear water is released through the sluice gates until it reaches the level of the sediment at the bottom of the tank. This old photo at Wheel Martin shows how the process was managed. The slurry would have been piped down from Cadover, and the sand, consisting of quartz and mica, will have settled out once placed into round tanks. The whole process begins when monitors force high pressure jets of water against the cliff face, dislodging the decomposed fragments of granite consisting of mica, quartz and feldspar. The quartz and feldspar, once they reach the settling tanks, settle out very quickly. Sharp sand we use today is a byproduct of the China clay industry. It's amazing how nature takes over, and in a process of 50 years or so, a woodland has grown here. It's good to see deciduous wood like this silver birch, but other species seem to be establishing themselves as well. I have returned to the car park where I want to explore the area the other side of the Plym. Our general map is not detailed enough, so I need to zoom in. Already there are some features that seem particularly interesting, so let's take a closer look. A footbridge has been erected across the Plym, which at one point was the site of an older bridge. We are now in a piece of land bounded by the fast-flowing waters of the Meavy to the left and the Plym to the right. It's hard to believe that this blissful rural idyll is the site of quite intense industrial activity. Once again, I am grateful for the assistance of Ernie Hoblin, who has provided me with the interpretation of the landscape in his publication, Industrial Archaeology of the Plym Valley. This structure is hard to work out, but here's the clue. This line of bricks forming the foundation suggests that the adjacent structure is a brick kiln. Initially, it is hard to fathom why a brick kiln would be found in a woodland. But a nearby mine, the Naomi mine, which was prone to flooding, yielded sand, clay and iron ore that gave the bricks colour, and all this was produced by the byproducts from the iron mines. This patented new improved brick kiln, dated 1880, the design being held by Messrs. Brogden and Caspar, is a tunnel kiln. There are several sections to the kiln, each section getting hotter until the central section where the main firing would occur. Each section was controlled by heavy doors, which were counterbalanced. Raising the temperature slowly at the beginning of the process and lowering it slowly at the end of the process meant that there was less chance that bricks would be cracked. As a result, finally, the bricks would have been unloaded and left to cool completely before being shipped out. Another advantage was that there could be a 24-hour-a-day usage, making it more economical. You can see these grooves on the side of the kiln. These sealed the wagons against the wall. Unfortunately, by 1883, business wound up voluntarily as being unviable. Also, this company was in competition with Martin Brothers in Lee Mill clay pit, and the Naomi mine, with its problems, may have been too small to be viable. Nearby is what seems to be a wheel pit. Certainly there would have been plenty of water to drive the water wheel. The surrounding grounds shows a large amount of disturbance, suggesting that there was a complex of buildings here, all associated with the process of the industry driven by iron mining. I'm following a path along the side of the Meavy, which will show evidence of the mining. Natural regeneration has allowed this tree to grow and to spread its roots either side of this mine adit. I have returned to the footbridge, and here is evidence of the 2-foot gauge railway that would have crossed the river here. Following the path, this railway provided access to iron mine pits further up, as well as a quarry. There are remnants of buildings left as testament of a once thriving industrial community. Around this site there are adits still visible.